San Francisco, today is June 23rd, and it is the slowest stretch of the NFL calendar, but the content never stops on 49ers Focus because there is always something worth talking about when you are covering one of the most fascinating franchises in professional sports. And today we have three stories that range from genuinely explosive to unexpectedly heartwarming to quietly significant. First, the 49ers just confirmed they are exploring a relocation of their practice facility, and the official reason they are giving is that they are running out of room. But there is a larger, more controversial conversation swirling around this announcement that the organization is very clearly trying to step around, and we are going to get into all of it. Then there is the Mac Jones trade situation, which just got new life from a surprising direction, and there is a seventh-round quarterback you need to know about whose training camp performance is going to determine whether Lynch picks up the phone before the November deadline. And finally, George Kittle is working out in Nashville, and the video of him moving around 5 months after tearing his Achilles needs to be watched by every member of the faithful, because the news is genuinely great. Let us break it all down right now on 49ers Focus. Let us start with the biggest story of the day, and it is one that has been building since January. The Athletic's Vic Tafur published a piece this week featuring an extensive conversation with 49ers CEO Guido about the franchise's vision, the success of Levi Stadium as a global sports destination, and the team's championship aspirations. And buried inside that article was a sentence that immediately set the Bay Area sports world on fire. Tafur wrote that the 49ers are exploring a possible nearby relocation as they are running out of space at and next to Levi's Stadium, running out of room. In 2026, after having practiced in that exact location since the late 1980s without any expansions or structural changes significant enough to suddenly cause a space crisis, the team just put significant investment into the weight room, the hydrotherapy facilities, the locker room, and the cafe inside the SAP Performance Center, and then turns around and says they need to move because there is not enough room. The timing of this announcement and the framing the organization is using to explain it has raised every eyebrow from Palo Alto to San Jose. Here is the background that every faithful member needs to have in full to understand why this story is so loaded. The Silicon Valley Power Mission Substation, an enormous electrical infrastructure hub that generates extremely low-frequency electromagnetic fields, sits directly adjacent to the 49ers practice fields. The substation has been operated by Silicon Valley Power for decades, but it underwent a significant expansion in 2014 when Levi's Stadium was built, substantially increasing its output and its proximity to where these players train every day of their professional lives. For years, players joked about it in locker room settings. It was an open secret inside the building. And then in January, a post on X from a user named Peter Cowan, arguing that the electromagnetic fields emanating from the substation could be weakening players' connective tissue over time, went viral with a velocity that caught the entire sports world off guard. Joe Rogan discussed it on his podcast to tens of millions of listeners. Christian McCaffrey told reporters, "It is not nothing." Kyle Juszczyk, the Stanford-educated fullback, told Front Office Sports that it has definitely been a talking point for years inside the building, and asked why it would be a coincidence that the 49ers have led the NFL in injuries for the last decade. Multiple players gave interviews about the substation theory during Super Bowl week in New Orleans that became one of the most discussed topics of the entire media event. John Lynch responded to the situation in January by saying the 49ers would look into everything and challenge all of their processes. The organization hired an independent scientist to evaluate the substation's impact, and CEO Guido went on the Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max show and called the scientist's findings a big nothing burger, insisting the electromagnetic field exposure was not a meaningful factor. Jed York went even further, appearing on the Kay Adams Show in the lead-up to the Super Bowl and firmly shutting down the theory. The 49ers have been consistent, public, and emphatic in their position. The substation is not a problem, and it is not why we have had all these injuries. And then 5 months later, they announced they are exploring a possible nearby relocation because they are running out of room. The same practice facility they invested in upgrading just months ago. The same footprint that somehow housed the entire team and coaching staff and training operation for the better part of 4 decades without running out of room. Running out of room now in the summer of 2026, right after the biggest public conversation about the substation in franchise history. Here is the honest assessment of where the science actually stands. Frank DeVocht, a professor of epidemiology and public health at Bristol Medical School, who is considered among the leading global experts on how EMF affects humans, told the Washington Post the theory is nonsense. Dr. Brian Sutterer, a sports medicine specialist, parsed the 49ers' injury data specifically to isolate soft tissue, fracture, and ligament injuries and found the team is not a statistical outlier in the NFL, and suggested that roster age might actually be the primary factor behind their elevated injury rate. The INFILPA announced it was monitoring the ongoing MFIF research, which tells you that the Players' Union is not dismissing the conversation, but also is not in a position to confirm the theory. Research Hub pledged $100,000 toward MFIF soft tissue research after the story went viral, signaling that the scientific community is taking the question seriously enough to study it further. Tim Kawakami of the San Francisco Standard, one of the most plugged-in voices covering this franchise, said he believes any eventual move would be about modernization and space, that the football office building is very old and cramped and they could use more room, and that no player has ever made a career decision based on the substation's placement. Here is where all of this leaves us. The science is not definitive. The experts are divided between dismissing the theory and acknowledging that more research is warranted. The 49ers have publicly rejected the EMP explanation while simultaneously announcing plans to explore moving to a new facility. Whether those two things are connected is something the organization will almost certainly never admit publicly. What is true is that Jed York is the owner of a franchise worth somewhere between $8 and $10 billion, and those athletes are the most valuable investments that franchise has. If there is a 1% chance that something about the current practice environment is contributing to the injury rate that has derailed multiple Super Bowl runs, the most logical business decision is to find a new location. Not because you are admitting the substation theory is correct, but because protecting your investment by eliminating every possible variable is exactly what a responsible organization does. The 49ers are going to move. It is going to happen within the next couple of years. And when they get to that new facility, it is going to look like a smart decision regardless of the stated reason. Now let us talk about Mac Jones, because the trade situation that everyone thought was dead and buried just came back to life from the most unexpected angle. And the name that is now at the center of it is a quarterback most casual fans have never heard of. His name is Curtis Rourke. He was selected in the 7th round of the 2025 NFL Draft out of Indiana. He missed his entire rookie season recovering from a partially torn ankle he played through during college, and he might be the reason John Lynch makes the most surprising phone call of his tenure as general manager before the November 3rd trade deadline. Here is the full picture from the San Francisco Chronicle's Eric Branch, who has been the most accurate voice reporting on the Jones situation all offseason. The 49ers never found a trade partner before the 2026 draft because no team met their asking price, which Lynch set at a minimum of a 2nd-round pick, with Kyle Shanahan hinting during draft weekend that it would have taken at least a 1st-round pick to pry Jones away. The market did not materialize. No team was willing to surrender that kind of capital for a backup quarterback. even one who went 5-3 with a 69.6% completion rate, a career-high 97.4 passer rating, and 2,151 yards in 8 starts last season while leading a depleted San Francisco team through a brutal injury stretch. Jones kept the 49ers' playoff chances alive essentially single-handedly for 2 months of the season, and the reward the organization gave him was a $300,000 roster bonus this offseason, bringing his total base pay for 2026 to $3.55 million with another $2.25 million in incentives. That is an extraordinary bargain for a quarterback of his demonstrated ability. But the X factor that changes the entire calculus is Rourke. Shanahan has done this before. He found Brock Purdy at the bottom of the 2022 NFL Draft, Mr. Irrelevant, the 262nd overall selection, and turned him into the most efficient passer in the league. He turned Sam Darnold, a player most of the NFL had given up on, into a Super Bowl winning quarterback. His system works. His ability to develop quarterbacks that others overlook is essentially unmatched in the sport. And if Rourke, a big-armed prospect with legitimate upside who spent his first professional year simply getting healthy, shows enough in training camp and the preseason to make the coaching staff believe they are holding another 7th-round gem, that is when the organizational calculus on Jones shifts from luxury to expendable. Branch wrote specifically that Shanahan could give Rourke more practice snaps than a third stringer would typically earn to evaluate whether he is prepared to operate as Purdy's backup sooner than anyone anticipated. Pro Football Talk's Michael David Smith was blunt about what happens next. A trade of Jones likely would not happen until some other team loses its starting quarterback to an injury. But that happens in the NFL every single year. And when it does in 2026, the 49ers will be ready to answer the phone. Jones is on an expiring contract and is not expected to return in 2027, where he will seek a starting job in a major free agent deal. The cap hit is manageable for any trade partner. His production is verified, his value is real. And there is a separate incentive for San Francisco that most people are not talking about loudly enough. The trade capital from a Jones deal could help fund a move for a pass rusher. A team that is last in the NFL in sacks, exploring edge rusher options, and sitting with more cap space than anyone else in the league would love to have an extra second-round pick floating around to use on a blockbuster defensive upgrade. Mac Jones appeared on the Rich Eisen show this week and addressed the rumors directly and graciously. He said his feet are in San Francisco, and he likes that a lot. He called the 49ers the best organization he has played for from top to bottom. He talked about wanting to keep getting better, improve his technique, and eventually earn a big contract. And he said something genuinely thoughtful and self-aware that deserves to be heard, that he has been working on being more present, listening more, valuing relationships, and not constantly looking ahead. He said he went to Costa Rica, did a wellness retreat, looked within himself, and came out of it with a clearer understanding of what really matters. That is a man who has grown enormously from the quarterback who got run out of New England, and Kyle Shanahan deserves enormous credit for helping rebuild both his professional confidence and apparently some of his personal clarity as well. The bottom line on Mac Jones is this. He is staying for now. He is going to compete, develop, and push Rourke while waiting for the right opportunity elsewhere. If Rourke looks like the next 7th-round miracle and a team suffers an injury at quarterback in October, Lynch is going to answer that call. And if neither of those things happens, Jones finishes the year in San Francisco, walks into free agency next March, and gets the starting opportunity he has earned. And now let us close with something that every member of the faithful has been desperately hoping to see, and this one is pure good news. George Kittle is in Nashville for Tight End University, and the videos coming out of that event have been circulating online, and they are genuinely remarkable. Shout out to Brad of SF 49ers, who received an exclusive invite from Kittle himself and captured this footage for the entire Niners community to see. Because what you see in those videos is not a man who looks like he is 9 months from returning from a torn Achilles. What you see is a man who looks like he is getting ready to play football. The context is critical. Kittle tore his right Achilles in January against the Philadelphia Eagles in the wildcard round. A torn Achilles typically requires 9 to 12 months of recovery. The surgery went as well as surgeries of this type can go. Kittle's surgeon described the specific nature of the tear as a best-case scenario occurring closer to the muscle attachment point than the heel, which theoretically enables a faster recovery timeline. And Kittle, who has never once been accused of lacking confidence or competitive fire, told reporters he was not closing the door on a Week 1 return. He expected to be back well before November. He was attacking the rehab the way he attacks a safety in the open field. What the videos from Nashville show is a man running with no limp, executing stop and start movements, showing lateral mobility, and moving at speeds that Kittle himself described as around 15 to 16 miles per hour. That is not a player carefully nursing a fragile recovery. That is a player who is already beginning to push the limits of what his body can do. 5 months out from the injury. When you add in that Tight End University has expanded into a legitimate major event held inside Vanderbilt Stadium with top tight ends from across the league in attendance, Kittle showing up and moving the way he did sends a message beyond just physical progress. The competitive spirit is fully intact. The preparation is fully underway. The George Kittle who tore up offensive coordinators for 9 years in San Francisco is coming back. The date to watch is Week 1, September 11th in Melbourne, Australia, against the Los Angeles Rams. It is the most watched regular season opener in NFL history from a global viewership standpoint. It is against the division rival that just added Myles Garrett. And it is the debut of a 2026 season that this entire franchise has been building towards since the Super Bowl losses. If Kittle is available for that game, the 49ers are a fundamentally different team from the one that takes the field without him. His presence in the run game alone changes what Christian McCaffrey can do. His availability as a safety valve for Brock Purdy in the red zone changes everything about the scoring efficiency of this offense. And his presence in the locker room, the fire, the edge, the energy that George Kittle brings to a building every single day is something you cannot put a number on. The faithful have had a lot of difficult news to process over the last 6 months. The Achilles, the playoff exit, the Brandon Aiyuk circus, all of it. And then there is this video from Nashville of their tight end running around a football field at 5 months post-surgery with a smile on his face and not a trace of a limp. Sometimes the best news of the day is a 30-second video that tells you everything you need to know. George Kittle is coming back. And when he does, this offense is going to remind the entire NFC exactly what they have been missing. Training camp opens in 22 days. The practice facility is about to move. Mac Jones might be traded by Halloween, and George Kittle is running routes in Nashville like nothing happened. This is 49ers Focus, and we are locked in every single day so you never miss a moment. If you loved today's breakdown, smash that like button right now and subscribe to 49ers Focus so the notification bell rings every time we drop new content. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the substation is a real factor? Do you make the Mac Jones trade if the price is right? And is Kittle back for Week 1 in Melbourne? Tell a friend. Go Niners.